So I was out here filming this guy, the WMP from Walther, the SD version with the threaded barrel. And Peter had a question at the end of the video, so I thought it would be a good idea to answer the question on video as a second video. So what was the question you asked Peter?
Could you use the 22 Magnum as a home defense gun? Because it does seem like it packs a little bit more punch than your average 22.
Yeah, and so for me, first of all, let's get this out of the way. Would I ever use this for self-defense? No. Why? Because I don't have to. The 22 Magnum is going to be very much a because you have to kind of defense round. And what I mean by that is this. There are some people who are just wholly susceptible to recoil. And I actually mentioned that in the video. Some people really just don't like the recoil that they get from 9mm, 380, 40, 45, it doesn't matter. So they're always looking, so they want something that shoots incredibly soft. So most people's thought process is to go to 22 long rifle immediately because that's, it's a small little round. And if you look it up, you hear all the stories of people talking about, well, 22 is not a good self-defense round. And then you get other people who are like, 22 has killed more people on the face of the planet than any other round in the world. And then you get those people who are like, a 22, well, if you hit someone, it'll bounce around the body. And that's why it makes it so deadly. I'm pretty sure to some extent, all of those things are true and all of it is not. It just kind of depends who you talk to and who you ask. At the end of the day, a bullet, for all intents and purposes, is a bullet. Can you kill someone with a 22 long rifle? Yes. Can you kill someone with a 22 Magnum? Peter's about to sneeze. Jesus Christ, Peter. Get it together. Can you kill somebody with a 22 Magnum? Yes, you can kill someone with a 22 Magnum. The question isn't whether or not you can kill somebody with it. The question is not whether it's can you stop somebody fast enough from them committing harm to you. And that's the whole concept of self-defense. I don't care whether you die, you don't die. I would prefer you not die. But as long as it stops you from doing what you're trying to do to me. That's my concept of self-defense. Now, considering all of those things, is 22 Magnum a good self-defense round? Can it be used for self-defense? Yes, and there are some pros and there are some cons to it as well. So let's start with the pros. Before you finish watching, a quick word from today's sponsor, Patriot Mobile. For 10 years, they've been America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, offering dependable nationwide coverage across all 3 major networks. You see, switching to Patriot Mobile means you support free speech, religious freedom, the sanctity of life, the Second Amendment, and our military veterans and first responders. Their 100% US-based customer service makes switching really easy. So keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. To do so, visit patriotmobile.com/Noir and get a free activation with the code Noir. Thank you, Patriot Mobile, for supporting the channel. Recoil, right? That's the biggest thing, right? Because most people are like, not most people, but there are people out there who are just recoil sensitive. Usually they're older, they're dealing with things like arthritis, so forth and so on. And so it's not so much, they're gonna, because I was gonna say, it's not so much that they're gonna go to the range on a daily basis and shoot. But actually, that's not true, because what the 22 Magnum would allow them to do is to go to the range and shoot and become efficient with that gun in a way that they otherwise wouldn't be able to because they're so sensitive to the recoil of higher caliber bullets. And whenever you're shooting a 22 Magnum, generally speaking, and all the guns that come in 22 Magnum, it's gonna be a light recoiling gun. Like for instance, this WMP recoils light as shit. It's exceedingly light. But then you're also getting more stopping power with the 22 Magnum versus the 22 long rifle, hence 22 Magnum. So getting as much power as possible, as much energy on target as possible is what's gonna be ideal. But the thing you have to factor in is shot placement, right? You can take a 9mm, pump it into somebody in the stomach, and they'll still live longer than somebody who got popped in the forehead with a 22 Magnum with one shot. Why? Because that's what they call an on and off switch, right? You hit somebody directly in the middle of the head and the brain, it's off switch, done. Whereas you could pump somebody in the gut with 9mm. Look at 50 Cent. 50 Cent got shot 9 times. And he's still here trolling everybody on the planet. So that should tell you how important shot placement is, regardless of the caliber. Now that said, the beautiful thing about 22 Magnum is it allows you to shoot a lot of rounds in a short period of time very accurately because of the low recoil. So I can put a lot of rounds on target. So that's a way to compensate for the lack of energy that you would get from, say, a 9mm 40 or 45, is in the one round you can shoot with the 9mm, I can probably make up with it within 3 rounds of this, because I could probably shoot, I'd say 2 to 3 rounds more in this 22 Magnum than I could with a 9mm in one to 2 shots, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's clear or not. Just because it's so much easier to shoot. Another thing too is, with a lot of, it's changing now, because before with 22, it was always like, you always had the capacity, right? There's a capacity issue. It was like, okay, 6 to 8 rounds or 10 rounds and stuff like that. Where nowadays, you got guns like the FN 502 tactical, you're getting 15 rounds, in some cases 18, 20 rounds, right? Same thing with the 22 Magnum. Now you have guns that are really high capacity, more or less, for what you would normally get from a 22. So for instance, with this WMP, you get 15 rounds. There are some 22 mag guns out there, you can get 20 rounds, even 30. So now you don't have to compromise with not just the power loss, but also capacity. So now you have that ability to shoot a lot of rounds quickly to deal with whatever threat you're dealing with, and then still have the capacity to do it where you otherwise wouldn't. Another thing that's a benefit to it is the whole penetration conversation, or over penetration. You know, a lot of people talk about, especially people, like a lot of people live in apartments, you know, and they're worried about, if I miss, bullets going through the wall, hitting neighbors and things like that. And I commend you for being concerned about those things. That makes you a very good neighbor. Now, that being said, with the 22 Magnum, you don't have those over penetration risks. I mean, they're still there, but not to the extent you get with the 9mm 40, 45, or God forbid, the 223, right? Those things are going straight through sheetrock like nothing. And this will too, because of the extra power that you get from the Magnum aspect of it, you get deeper penetration, but you don't get over penetration, so to speak. Where in other calibers, you get great penetration, but then in some respect, you're getting over penetration. This is getting very awkward right now, but you get the point. Another thing about the 22 Magnum now, I couldn't say this maybe 10 years ago or 15, 20 years ago, but now is reliability. The thing about these guns now is, back in the day, 22s were fun guns, right? They were fun because, you know, they're light shoot, really light recoiling, fun to shoot, really inexpensive. And with this, you get guns like the WMP, and you got other guns as well, like they have the Kel-Tec. You got that too. And these guns are reliable. So no longer are you dealing with the idea of like, you can use the 22, but I mean, they're not very reliable, so you might want to be careful. No, these guns are pretty damn reliable at this point, to the point where they are conducive to be used for self-defense. So you have platforms now to pick from where you can actually shoot those rounds comfortably and know that the gun's gonna run. And so from that perspective, I think that gives it another notch for being an adequate self-defense round, so to speak, for those people who need it. The ability to suppress it, along with the fact that you now have guns that are more reliable in that caliber, you also have the ability to suppress it. And that is just, especially when you can do something like this small. And, you know, I talked about in the video, for me, suppression isn't about having the quietest gun. It's about having the gun quiet enough that I'm not blowing my eardrums out. That's what I care about. So you can put this little guy on there and you have a maneuverable gun. Usually, sometimes I feel like these longer suppressors on handguns make the gun kind of goofy. But when you have something like this, which kind of takes the bite out of that recoil sensation, I think that, to me, I think that's the sweet spot. You can take that, put it on this gun, get that little thing there, and you're good to go. And then on top of that, the last thing I'm gonna point out too is ammo. You know, nowadays you have the ability to get ammo in 22 Magnum specifically designed for self-defense, where you otherwise didn't really have that to that extent. Now you have those options where you can get well, reliable rounds that are designed, hollow points that are designed for self-defense in mind, keeping self-defense in mind. So you have that aspect of it too. So I said all that to say this. When it comes to 22 Magnum for self-defense, can you use it for self-defense? Yes, of course you can. But just understand the limitations that come with it. It's not gonna have the stopping power of a 9mm. So that means you're gonna have to compensate. You have to compensate by, one, shot placement. So making sure you shoot exactly what you're aiming at and are aiming at what they call switches. I didn't come up with this. This is where all my military friends, this is the language they use. Switches and timers, right? So switch is you get hit there, you're immediately out of the fight. Timer, you'll die eventually, but you can still fight. That becomes, hitting a switch becomes way more important with a 22 Magnum than it does with, say, like a 9mm, right? Because you're just dealing with such a small round with less energy. But at the end of the day, me personally, I'm not using a 22 Magnum for self-defense. However, for those people who are out there who are considering it for self-defense, it's not ideal, but I don't feel as uncomfortable suggesting it as I once used to because of some of the modern advancements that we've gotten by way of platforms that are who shoot it reliably and are easy to shoot. On top of that, the advancements in ammo and having self-defense rounds, the ability to suppress them, the high capacity and all of that coming together, that brings the 22 Magnum into a space of self-defense where it kind of has 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You can use it, but just understand the limitations that come with it and compensate for them. So that's just my thoughts, but for all you motherfuckers out there in the internet world that is undefeated, tell me what you think in the comment section. Do you think 22 Magnum is a good self-defense round? I'm kind of, like I said, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't know what that was. Cut the camera, please. Just turn the camera off. Cut it, cut it, cut it. Fuck it, we'll do it live. One thing's for certain and two things are for sure. Politicians and tech giants don't want gun content to be recommended to you. And we're all fighting this culture war together. Now you can help do your part by liking, commenting, subscribing to the channel, but most importantly, sharing this video with at least one person. Together we can stop the suppression of our 2A rights. And don't forget to click the link in the description section of this video for the products that I mentioned in this video.